your families. Vote for your futures. Vote on the issues that matter to you, because they are on the ballot, not just my name and my opponent's name.
You have one day to make every dream you ever dreamed for your country come true. You have one magnificent chance to beat the corrupt system and deliver justice. Do not let this opportunity slip away.
The candidates today, as you take a look at the chandelier here in the big studio, pretty cool looking, huh? Here's where the candidates were today before we bring in the panel. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton crisscrossing the country, and they had multiple stops. There's the Trump campaign, and you can see all of the stops, including some stops in traditionally blue states. And there you see, let's go to the Clinton folks, not only the candidate, the nominee, but all of her surrogates. And there you see some stops in Florida, Virginia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Michigan as well. And they're spending some time in North Carolina with a big event tonight. Now, the latest Fox News polls have Hillary Clinton up nationally, as we showed you earlier, by 4, and that is a shift. Now, if you look at the independents in this, it has been a bit of a shift towards Clinton in recent days. As you see there, 3 points and 1 point up for Donald Trump. Just moments ago, the Real Clear Politics average of polls in Florida has changed. It now has Trump up 0.2. There you go. And the Real Clear Politics average has just changed in North Carolina. It has Donald Trump up 1 point. That is a shift. Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. Monica Crowley, editor and columnist for the Washington Times. And Philip Bump, politics reporter for the Washington Post. Okay, let's start with the presidential race. Phil, what do you think of these polls, where we're standing, and what looks like this Electoral College map as we head into tomorrow?
All right, well, I mean, I think that the thing people are going to want to pay attention to tomorrow is what's happening in Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, right? I mean, I think that all those shifts that you just talked about there, we've known that those states are going to be close, those movements up and down percentages of points. What that reinforces is it's an all-out push in those states. Both Florida and North Carolina have some early vote numbers that I think are important to keep in mind and may affect what we see as the eventual outcome.
But Flip,
with those,
Florida, the
right.
Clinton folks say they feel confident with
right.
a lot of the turnout down in the South and Hispanic vote. But in North Carolina, the Trump people are touting that early vote.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of that is because the African-American vote in North Carolina has dropped fairly precipitously since 2012. So watching those 4 states, we know that if Donald Trump wins all 4 of those states, he'll probably win the presidency. He needs to win 3 of those states. And it's not clear right now. It's simply impossible to tell based on what the polls say how he's going to do.
Monica.
Yeah, anybody who tells you they know what's going to happen tomorrow night is lying to you. Nobody has any idea. And the reason is because what we've
we can try. We can come close.
We can try, right. But the reason really nobody has a handle on this, and this includes Donald Trump and it includes Mrs. Clinton, is that what we're seeing across the Western world, including in the United States, are these very significant realignments. This is likely to be a realigning election. We have all kinds of cross currents happening where you have Donald Trump campaigning actively in blue states, the industrial Rust Belt across the Midwest, where he's doing extremely well, where Republicans traditionally have not. Mrs. Clinton is spending time and resources now in these states because she's looking at her internal polling, seeing it possibly slip away from her. So nobody has a handle on this yet. I would say that perhaps Donald Trump's momentum going into this last weekend may have been arrested a little bit by the FBI's latest announcement. But I would say in the waning days, and actually the last 2 weeks, Donald Trump has done something really smart. He has kept his closing argument very simple and consistent with the nation's core values, talking about law and order, economic populism, a strong national defense, and defeating a corrupt, rigged system. And I think that's worked to his benefit and may end up helping him close the deal.
And Steve, we just saw a little bit of that speech in Pennsylvania where he focused on Obamacare in his close there in Scranton.
Yeah, I think his supporters will say, this is the pivot we were waiting for the entire election to take place. Look, I think both Monica and Philip are right. you know, Trump supporters will point to the Des Moines Register poll in Iowa, which is a notoriously accurate poll, has Donald Trump +7, and say, look, if Donald Trump is up 7 in Iowa, you can point to places like Wisconsin and Minnesota where Democrats were only 1 or 2 points behind in 2012, behind those results, and say there could be a Midwestern wave. At the same time, if you look at the public polling among white voters in particular, the premise of Donald Trump's candidacy was that he would increase the white vote, that there were missing white voters, that he would get more of them out than Mitt Romney. Well, the Fox News poll that was out this morning at 10 a.m. had Donald Trump getting 54% of the white vote. That was 17 points better than Hillary Clinton. If you look back at 2012, Mitt Romney defeated Barack Obama among white voters 59-39. So Romney actually was doing better among white voters than Trump is, at least according to these polls.
One more poll from the Fox polls, and it is pretty stark when you think about honest and trustworthy numbers. And you look at these numbers and you see that Donald Trump is 37%, not trustworthy is 60%, but Hillary Clinton is at 33 and 64. I mean, here we are, ready for Election Day, and this is the honest and trustworthy numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is an unusual situation for America to be voting between two presidential candidates who most of America dislikes, right? And that's a situation we find ourselves in. I mean, I think that it's important, the thing that we've seen in Washington Post polling that we do with ABC News over time is that the temperament number, however, is a huge gulf between two candidates. The Fox News poll reinforced that today. There are a lot of people who don't think Donald Trump has the temperament to be president, and that's the main reason that when people say he's not qualified to be president, that they say that. I think that is probably the reason that he's got this apparent ceiling in the polling more so than these honesty.
Okay, we want to talk about the balance of power in Congress, and that obviously is a huge storyline for tomorrow night. U.S. Senate hangs in the balance. You know, some people say the House could hang in the balance, but most will tell you that they probably will not lose control of the House and that Paul Ryan will be Speaker come the next term of Congress. All right, races that you think are interesting or to focus on. Steve.
Well, we've spent so much time talking about the Senate and governor's races, I thought I'd pick a couple House races. One is the race in Wisconsin 08 where Mike Gallagher...
You picked a race in Wisconsin?
It's hard to imagine.
Wow,
right? Well, I could have picked Johnson Feingold. But Wisconsin 8 where Reed Ribble is retiring. He was a never-Trumper representative stepping down from Congress. Mike Gallagher, a former retired Marine captain and PhD candidate in international relations at Georgetown. Very smart, very sophisticated. He should win that race on tomorrow night. Mitt Romney won the district 51-48 in 2012. But if Mike Gallagher is in trouble, it's a sign that Hillary Clinton's probably having a good night. The other race I picked was Liz Cheney, likely to win in Wyoming in the at-large statewide district. And I think the reason that those are interesting both as gauges of what might happen tomorrow night, but also if there is a new Republican majority in Congress or a continued Republican majority in the House, I think you'd look to those two as potential leaders of a national security wing of that freshman class.
Okay, Monica, your choice.
Well, first, my analysis of the House. The Republicans keep control of the House, but there might be a net loss for Republicans of between 8 and 15 seats. But the race that I'm really going to watch tomorrow night is the Pennsylvania Senate race, the Republican incumbent Pat Toomey running against the Democratic challenger, Katie McGinty. The most recent polling has them essentially tied, and this is even as Donald Trump runs about 2 to 4 points behind Mrs. Clinton on the presidential level. I am watching this race because Pennsylvania obviously critical for the presidential race. It has the electoral votes Donald Trump needs in order to win. If Toomey is doing well, that could be because Donald Trump is creating some significant gusts for him. The other reason this is important is Pat Toomey is a critical leader for the conservative movement, so his reelection is important to the future of that movement. And also because the GOP majority in the Senate is in peril, so his reelection is vital to retaining that control.
All right, Philip, your choice has a soundbite set up. And because in North Carolina there has been one issue that's really been interesting in that race, and that is this bathroom bill.
When we lost the NBA All-Star Game, the NCAAs, and the ACC championships, it hurt North Carolina's economy and our national reputation.
Does the desire to be politically correct outweigh our children's privacy and safety? Not on my watch.
Looks like it's pretty tight there at the North Carolina governor's race.
Right, so incumbent Governor Pat McCrory is behind a little bit in the Real Clear Politics polling average. The reason I think this is an important race to watch is because the Dems have gotten absolutely obliterated at the state level for the past few cycles. And this really is a test of, this is a governor who a lot of Democrats feel very strongly about nationally because of the bill you just saw, also because of restrictions on early voting, which have affected the presidential race to some extent. This is a presidential election year. The Democrats should do well. They should get all their folks out there. And yet McCrory is only down by 2 points. This is a race that the Democrats should win if they're putting all their resources into it, and right now it still looks like a toss-up.
Panel, thank you very much. Exciting.